It's Wednesday, May 10th, and this is now on HNN.
Let's get ready to ride!
The city announces the grand opening date for Phase 1 of the long-delayed Honolulu Rail project.
Police are investigating after an apparent double overdose from fentanyl at a Maili home.
Congressman George Santos pleads not guilty to federal criminal charges. I'm Nicole D'Antonio with his first court appearance and reaction from lawmakers here on Capitol Hill.
These stories plus Hawaii News Now is launching a new podcast that focuses on mental health awareness. Details coming up on This Is Now.
Good afternoon and welcome to This Is Now. Well, it is the day so many people have been waiting for. We now know the anticipated date for the opening of Honolulu's rail line.
Yeah, the city made the big announcement during a press conference this morning. Here's what Honolulu Mayor Rick Blangiardi had to say.
So it's not going to happen in July, but it is going to happen on June 30th. Okay, and I'm really pleased with that because we're actually ahead of schedule. I'm really proud of the team, the men and women who've worked to make this a reality, and it's just a joyous moment. I think all of us are excited to know that on that date, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we're going to have people from this island riding on our trains, and we're anxious to see the effect that that's going to take on the days ahead and the roads ahead.
This grand opening of the rail is only for the first phase, which begins in Kapolei and extends to the now shuttered Aloha Stadium. There are 9 stations along the initial route. The Department of Transportation said it's offering free ridership for the 4th of July weekend following opening day. And one thing city officials say you will need in order to ride is a holo card. The construction of the rail line started in 2012, but will take years more for the second phase to wrap up. Hart says this will extend the line to the Middle Street station, providing access to the airport. The projected opening timeframe for that is by 2025. Joining us to talk more about the rail project is our Daryl Huff. Daryl, thanks for joining us here today. Why did it take us so long to get to this point of just the opening of Phase 1?
Well, the first thing is, this is a humongous project. It's huge. It's very long. It's 20 miles long. It's a very heavy construction. It's a heavy rail project. It's built out of nothing, right? So that's the first thing. It just takes a long time. The environmental studies and stuff took a long time. Quick look back. They approved the tax for this, that 0.5% excise tax, back in 2005. But then it took 6 years till they broke ground. And that's after all the environmental studies and all that other stuff. Then once they broke ground, not much later than that, there was a lawsuit because they tried to phase the archaeological studies. And they got caught basically not following the federal law there. And so they were stopped for another year. All that time, the prices keeps going up, goes up, goes up, goes up. And so they, the delays were primarily due to surprises that they found in construction and also the lawsuit and so on, the environmental studies. So, that's why it's taken 18 years to get us to here. If you count the beginning of the project when they approved the tax, it's taken 12 years if you start from the groundbreaking.
That's a long time. Now, we do know that they started out west and then they're working their way to town. But the chunk of rail that has been finished, it hasn't just been sitting there. We know they've been running tests. Should people feel safe at this point to hop on these driverless trains?
It is a little spooky, right? You're used to, even when you get on a train, seeing somebody up there with a stick, able to stop it if they have to and so on. This is not the only system like this in the world. I think it's the only driverless system in our country, but there's one in Vancouver that's been operating quite safely for a long time. The reason that you can feel somewhat assured is because of the extent of the testing that's been done. When you see all those cars going by over and over and over again, they're basically empty and they're just running it over and over the tracks. They have to reach something like a 99.8% success rate for several weeks before they can actually say, okay, we're ready to turn this over to the city and let people ride on it.
Got it. And now looking ahead, of course, now that phase 1 is going to be up and running, people are eagerly awaiting phase 2. But we do know construction is slowly coming towards more congested areas. Do you foresee any potential speed bumps or other issues slowing this down even more?
The next portion is actually fairly close, 2005, and that will extend from the stadium, where hardly anybody wants to go now since there are no events there. It's going to be a construction site before too long. It will go all the way from East Kapolei, which is basically Ho'opili and the University of Hawaii, West Oahu, all the way to Middle Street. And what they're anticipating is that at that stage, you'll be able to get from Kapolei to the airport. I think airport access is a big deal. People will be able to get to Pearl Harbor, which is a big deal, and people will be able to get to Middle Street, which is just past the Middle Street merge where the worst of the traffic accumulates. So when you have a bad traffic day and you can get past Lagoon Drive to Middle Street, and if they set up a really robust bus link up at the end of that stop, that will be a fairly effective transit system until they get the last segment built.
Our Daryl Huff talking all about rail. Thank you so much for joining us here on This Is Now.
New at noon, Honolulu police are investigating an apparent double overdose at a home in Maili. Sources say first responders were called out at around 5 p.m. yesterday to a residence along Hakimo Road. One person was found dead in the home. Another was treated and transported by EMS in critical condition. The case is a suspected fentanyl overdose. However, additional testing is being done. This is the latest in a series of overdoses connected to the powerful opioid.
Over on Hawaii Island, hundreds gathered searching for a solution to the fentanyl epidemic. Government officials, emergency personnel, and healthcare professionals attended the second annual Fentanyl and Addiction Summit in Waimea yesterday. The Hawaii Island Fentanyl Task Force estimates there's at least one opioid overdose death every 11 days on Hawaii Island alone. Deputy sheriffs arrested a suspected car thief hours after he was mistakenly released from a court cell block. Sources tell us authorities found the 38-year-old Jonathan Hewitt hiding in the crawl space of an attic at a home on Anoi Road in Kaneohe. Hewitt gave up peacefully just after 5 p.m. yesterday. Public safety officials say after appearing in court that morning, he was ordered to be locked up at OCCC, but was instead set free. Hewitt's girlfriend says the sheriffs overreacted, especially since it was their mistake. 2 people were uninjured after their car plunged into a canal in Kailua yesterday evening. Firefighters said it happened at the intersection of Hamakua Drive and Hekili Street. Officials arrived at the scene around 6:10 p.m. and found the car partially submerged into the canal. 2 people escaped without any major injuries and declined transport to the hospital. That's according to EMS. It's unclear how the car ended up in the water.
The USGS is tracking a sharp rise in inflation at the summit of Kilauea. Scientists say the ground is swollen, even more than it was before the January 5th eruption. There have also been small flurries of earthquakes beneath Halema'uma'u crater and the southern region of the caldera. At this point, however, the volcano is not erupting. And just in time for all that activity, the vibrating truck being used to map the inner workings of Kilauea rolled out on the mountain yesterday. The vehicle is sending seismic waves to nearly 2,000 sensors on the summit. Using the data, a computer will generate a 3D image of Kilauea's plumbing system. The image is expected to take about 2 years to create. The public will have the chance to weigh in on future plans for the Poho'iki boat ramp on Hawaii Island. It's been closed since the 2018 Kilauea eruption, which has impacted local fishing businesses and recreation. The DLNR is estimating a 9-month dredging project needed to reopen the facility would cost about $40 million. the majority of which would be covered by federal funds. A virtual public meeting will take place tonight from 5 to 7 p.m. There's a link to join on our website, hawaiinewsnow.com.
Embattled Congressman George Santos has pleaded not guilty to a 13-count federal indictment, including charges of fraud and money laundering. Now, the freshman Republican from New York has been at the center of several investigations after revelations that he fabricated his life story and his credentials leading up to the election. Nicole D'Antonio has reaction from Capitol Hill.
Congressman George Santos was arraigned in federal court Wednesday on charges of wire fraud, money laundering, theft of public funds, and making false statements to Congress.
Now I'm going to have to go and fight to defend myself. The reality is it's a witch hunt, because it makes no sense that in 4 months, 5 months, I'm indicted.
Federal prosecutors say he embezzled contributions that were supposed to go to his congressional campaign and used them for his own personal benefit.
The very first class I ever taught was campaign finance law, and I would never have written an exam like this because it's just too obvious. People tend to be sneakier and better at it than this.
Santos is also accused of collecting unemployment benefits while he had a job and lying to Congress about his finances.
The level of fraud, the level of extremism, the continued lies throughout all of this, these are things that we've known.
The freshman Republican from New York fell under intense scrutiny shortly after winning his seat, when lies he told about his background began unraveling. Many fellow New York Republicans have called on Santos to resign, but with a slim majority in the House, GOP leadership is taking a wait-and-see approach.
Obviously, he's going to have to face the charges that he has. Again, he's got a presumption of innocence, but that court process is going to play itself out. But he's already been removed from all of his committees.
Santos has repeatedly resisted calls to resign and recently announced he was running for re-election. Nicole D'Antonio, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
Now, a short time ago, the Associated Press reported that Santos said he won't drop his re-election bid and continued to defy calls to resign.
A birth control pill is a big step closer to being sold over the counter. FDA advisors voted today in support of allowing people to buy the drug named O-pill without a prescription. The panel unanimously agreed that people would be able to use O-pill safely and effectively without help from a healthcare worker. The FDA does not have to follow the advisor's recommendation, but it often does. Last year, 59 members of Congress asked the FDA commissioner to consider over-the-counter sales, saying it would cut down on unwanted pregnancies. The FDA is expected to make a decision on whether to approve O-pill for over-the-counter sales this summer. With just weeks to go before the country defaults on its bills, President Biden met with congressional leaders yesterday at the White House to discuss the debt ceiling. Now, both sides are standing firm, with Democrats wanting to raise the debt ceiling without restrictions and Republicans demanding spending cuts. But there is hope, as both sides are expected to renegotiate on Friday. Alice Barr has the story.
With pressure mounting to reach a debt ceiling deal and prevent a catastrophic default on the nation's loans by as soon as June 1st, President Biden today turning up the political heat on Republicans.
They're literally, not figuratively, holding the economy hostage by threatening to default on our nation's debt.
The president visiting a New York swing district he won, while the House seat is held by a Republican who came to hear the president speak.
I'm willing to listen to what he has to say. We have to sit down and negotiate in good faith.
President Biden searching for a counterweight to hard right demands for massive spending cuts in exchange for raising the debt limit.
Where the credit card of the nation was maxed out by Joe Biden's spending over the last 2 years.
The president wants budget negotiations on a separate track to ensure the nation can pay its bills first. But the top 4 congressional leaders and President Biden failed to find common ground in a tense White House meeting yesterday.
Speaker McCarthy absolutely refused to take default off the table.
The parties set to meet again on Friday.
I hope President Biden has begun to wake up.
Top economists say an historic default would send the stock market into a tailspin, tank 401ks, and lead to a spike in job losses. All of that on the line with just 3 weeks to go to reach a deal. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
Back here at home, Waikiki's neighborhood board unanimously passed a proposal asking the city to change the closing time at Kuhio Beach from 2 a.m. to midnight. Businesses and HPD supports the idea, but some residents think it'll only work if more patrol officers are assigned to the area.
The more security, the more or less likely someone is going to be acting up, causing fights, doing drug transactions, anything that can cause trouble.
More officers on the beach, that 1,000% will help. Honestly, that's what actually helped them a little bit when they started patrolling the beaches more. I know a lot of people that were doing stuff like that, and you don't see them anymore.
The Department of Parks and Recreation will make a final decision on whether to change the hours. The beach would still reopen at 5 a.m.
The James Campbell High School Marching Band is in a big rush to raise $200,000. They need the money to get to the Independence Day Parade in Washington, D.C. this summer. Campbell got the prestigious invite back in 2019, but the pandemic postponed the parade. Now, less than 2 months before the event, a $3,000 pledge has fallen through, and some band members are dropping out because of the high costs. The Booster Club is looking for support.
Honor that we're able to represent not just Eva Beach, not just James Campbell, but Hawaii on the national level.
I was very afraid because I thought that we weren't going to be able to have this chance to go, considering that it is a lot of money.
The James Campbell High School Marching Band Boosters is a registered nonprofit and has a GoFundMe page. At last check, they raised almost $19,000 so far. All right, let's do what we can to get those kids to D.C.
Yes, most definitely.
Yeah, let's take you live outside now for a look at our traffic cam. This is the H1 freeway and Ka'ahumanu.
Yeah, earlier today, our H&N digital team pushed out on our apps. There was a crash in the westbound directions. We know at one point up to 4 lanes were closed. But the good news is all lanes have been reopened. So far, no serious injuries were reported, but looks like things are flowing smoothly out there on the roads. Let's go ahead and give you a look at your island weather.
We have a few minor splashes this morning heading into a handful of windward spots. Rainfall totals will be light. They'll be moving along because we have a trade wind breeze today. But starting tomorrow, we lose those trade winds, and that means spotty afternoon showers. And that's starting tomorrow, probably all the way through Saturday. So look at this. We still got some fun surf in town. This is yesterday at Bowles. Look at Reed ripping it up, enjoying it. So light trades today, right? Just a few minor splashes, and humidity levels will be good. Air quality is going to be good. That changes a little bit tomorrow because variable winds run from tomorrow through Saturday. That means morning sunshine, afternoon clouds, some afternoon showers, perhaps even a few afternoon downpours. Widespread rain not expected. So that's going to be the case with slightly higher humidity levels on Saturday. And then on Sunday for Mother's Day, well, the trade winds come back just in time.
Well, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and it focuses on the importance of mental well-being, especially in our youth. Now, joining us now to talk more about this is our digital content producer, Megan Ramones. Aloha, Megan. How are you today?
Hi, Dylan. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about what you've been working on.
New data by the CDC shows that more teens are reporting poor mental health and having increasing suicidal thoughts. Being a teen was never easy, but it seems that there's a rising concern in young people who are in a crisis. So to explore this, I spoke with Dr. Charmaine Jackman. She's a licensed therapist of 25 plus years of experience, and she explains the state of mental health in our youth. And she also provides some tips and resources that parents can refer to in the case that their teen is struggling.
Yeah, what are some of those tips that the doctor shared?
Essentially, she said to start the conversation. It's going to be awkward. It's going to be terrifying. It's going to be uncomfortable. But just the fact of starting that conversation and showing your teen that you're concerned about their well-being is enough to show them that you care. And she just said to connect with them, connect with your child, because more than ever, they need connection.
Most definitely. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to take on this topic, and what does mental health and mental health awareness mean to you personally?
I wanted to explore mental health stigma, like what's stopping people from getting the help that they need, because for sure there are some things that we grow up with thinking that we can't show weakness, we can't be vulnerable. So wanted to go out and explore what mental health experts had to say.
Yeah, well, we are so glad you are taking on this topic. Really quickly, can you tell us a little bit about what we can expect from your podcast, when and where people can watch it, and how to listen?
It'll be on our extended streams as well as our digital platforms, and you can expect to learn a little bit more about mental illness, mental health, and what you can do to get better today.
Perfect. Our Megan Ramona is on the very important topic of mental health awareness. Thanks for joining us, Megan.
Thank you.
Well, it's time to check out some some news from the feeds. Now, a staggering collection of precious jewels is going under the hammer today. Now, this is despite demands by the Jewish group and community to call off the auction.
Yeah, that's because the jewels belong to the widow of a Nazi party member who made his fortune buying out Jewish businesses. Ian Lee has the story.
One of the world's greatest jewelry collections is going under the hammer.
And the clasp of the necklace is an 11-carat pink diamond. So quite a special necklace. It's estimated between $7 and $10 million.
The 700 pieces from Austrian billionaire Heidi Horton, who died last year, are estimated to fetch over $150 million.
The Sunrise Ruby, it's a 25-carat Burma ruby, estimated at $15 to $20 million. There is the Briolette of India, a 90-carat D color, the whitest Briolette drop that's estimated between $10 and $15 million.
But not everything is flawless. Some of the stones have an imperfect past. Horton's husband built his business empire by taking advantage of desperate Jews fleeing Nazi Germany.
If Christie's wants to do the right thing, and they should, they need to halt the sale. Halt it now before it's complete.
But Christie's is defending the sale, saying all proceeds will go to charity.
We cannot erase history, but hopefully the money from this sale will go to do good in the future.
It's likely the controversy will leave a blemish on these gems, even after the final hammer falls next week. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Well, beautiful pieces, but you got to respect the history of that, you know? You know what I'm saying? All right, it's time for some good news now. A Pennsylvania woman actually celebrated a huge milestone. Ann Shannon tells us about her secret to a long life.
We're going to put her right at the head of the table.
May 1st is a special day for Jean Stevens.
Well, I was born in 1916.
Jean has a lot to celebrate. Born in New Jersey, she ended up in York County, where she became a television pioneer.
Somehow they wanted a televised program, and it was cooking was what I was doing, and people would turn their television on.
She worked as a teacher and dietitian. She had a passion for travel.
China, Japan, Hawaii, Europe, all over Europe.
That's Tom, your son Tom.
Yeah.
Jean raised 3 sons.
Hi.
She has 5 grandchildren and countless friends. Her recipe for a long life?
Well, my mother always fed us lots of vegetables, fruits and vegetables.
Her friends and family say she still has a good appetite, but they believe her secret may be more about her attitude.
I think this is why she's done as well as she has, is because she always is happy.
She's an incredibly optimistic person. I think that's the secret to her longevity, or one of the secrets. Happy birthday, dear Jean.
That is something worth celebrating. Ann Shannon, WGAL, News 8.
Well, happy birthday to her.
Yes. Fruits, vegetables, and happiness.
And a little bit of cake in between there.
I love it.
Let's give you a live look outside. This is Toronto Harbor. A much different look than what we normally see with our local cameras here, but a beautiful day out there and a beautiful day here in Hawaii.
That's right. Lots of sunshine and lots more news on the way on Hawaii News Now. Later editions coming up, starting with First at 4 right here on KHNL.